Electricity produces all the phenomena of nature. That it is the river active agent in evolving visible forms of substances whose results are known as laws. Man is the most perfect enfoldment of nature's electric laws, and the world and the universe are the universal expression of electric life and energy. Man and all the visible forms of creation are woven from invisible ether by electric forces, and as man's will and thoughts are the governing force of his electric organism, so simple and universal are the laws of nature that the will and thoughts of deity by electric energy are the controlling law and force of the universe, and the ultimate cause producing all causes, all creations, and all tangible forms. The natural world is the product of matter and force, and all matter is one matter represented by the invisible atom. And all physical force is one force, being the varied manifestations of electric energy. For the natural world is the spiritual unfoldment made manifest by electric power. Therefore, all varied phenomena of nature, the revolution of the earth on its axis and in its orbit around the sun, the brilliant light and governing power of the sun, the circling stars, the blazing comet, the shooting meteor, the gorgeous rainbow, the luminous aurora, and the dazzling corona are all expressions of electric power. The lightning in the cloud, the reverberations of thunder, the ebb and flow of the tides, the wind currents in the air, the swaying of the forest, the variations of heat and cold, the falling of snow, the raindrop, and the dew are all electric manifestations. You cannot raise your arm, lift your foot, or move your body except by electric energy. You cannot see or hear or feel or taste or smell or exercise any of the functions of the body without bringing to your aid the electric force, which permeates all forms and substance. Electricity creates the mystery of physical life and provides the food and substance necessary to its growth and development. Electricity works the miracle of digestion and assimilation and converts inert matter into blood and bone, tissue and muscle, and organizes man's body into an electric machine, and runs it as truly and perfectly by electric energy as the electric motor or generator is run by electricity. Man draws his electric life currents from the air into the lungs as a great electric reservoir. There it purifies and energizes the blood and sends it as an electric fluid and circulating magnetic current through every part of the body, causing the heart valves to pulsate, the measureless force, and the human machine to throb with intense life and power. The heart throbs and pulse beats of man's body are but the rhythmic whir and vibrations of the human electric machine. Man makes electrical machines of wood and glass and metal, but nature makes them of flesh and bone, and of all matter and substance. Nature, the all-wise and mysterious necromancer, makes nothing but electric machines, from the infinitesimal atom to the self-luminous perfected dynamos, the suns and stars. All things that exist are electric generators, or electric creations of marvelous construction, power and utility, and all expressions of form and power. All visible objects and all varied phenomena of nature are produced by electric magnetic energy. Franklin and Faraday, Harvey, Morse, and Edison, by their discoveries, have taught us that as the potter and the clay must come together to form the rudest vessels, so creative electric force must touch every sensitive atom in organic being, and keep the well springs of life constantly flowing through all life forms. There is no unfolding of bud and blossom, tree and shrub, without the coming and going of electric, life-giving sunlight and earthlight. They pervade all bodies of matter, whether world spheres or seed germs, and hold communion with all atomic centers of sensation in all living organisms. Atoms seek their electric affinities. Life forces and life forms touch each other by the grasp of magnetic attraction and repulsion, and these give personal sensations and vital forms of being. Through the medium of electricity, material and mental forces meet together upon the plane of human consciousness. This is nature's method of communication between the material and mental within the human brain, which has been a puzzling and difficult problem of physical science. The language of the senses is the universal language that has its foundation in invisible forces. There is a unity between the light and the eye that indicates their origin in the same lines of force that now give sight to the brain life. In the ear, there is evidence that the electric vibratory currents of force producing sound had a companionship with the electric life germ, in which the ear had its beginning. So all organs of sense and possesses unmistakable evidence of having proceeded out of those electric forces that are unseen and imponderable. The knowledge of these is the story of the Garden of Eden, incorporated into the life of every intellectual being. All the evidence of the senses comes from electric telegrams from without or within man's physical organism. Seeing and hearing are wireless telegrams from the ether without, and feeling, smelling, tasting are wired telegrams running along the nerves of man's body and communicating with the brain, the seat of intelligence, and the reasoning soul. Man must have a connecting link between his mind and body and the things about him, and as that connecting link and medium in man is electricity, so plain and simple are the laws of nature, that God has no other medium between him and all material creations. Electricity, therefore, is both the creative governing energy of deity over the universe and the governing energy of man over all material things. God controls the universe as man controls his body by electricity. Man has 5 senses: seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling. These are all communicated to the soul or spiritual body by electricity. Man feels by the electric flashes that come from every part of his body, that tingle on his nerves and beat upon his brain, touch the garments of the living soul. He sees through the medium of the electric etheric waves of light that come from the vibrations of the air around him. By these swift electric flashes, the infinitesimal rays of electric light enter the retina of the eye and touch the quick vision of the soul. He hears by the atmospheric waves of electricity that beat upon his eardrums. He tastes and smells by the same electric process, and his 5 senses are but the inward communication of outer surrounding conditions and substances to his spiritual perception by means of electricity. Thus, the creative deity hears and knows, and by the same forces directs and sustains all things. Man as an electric engine is far more efficient than any known engine in which there is a consumption of fuel. In general, the amount of work a man does bears a certain proportion to the fuel he puts into his boiler. Plants also constitute forms of electric engines. to embalm the sun rays and use the products rejected by men and animals. Carbon dioxide. Pretty good little system. By the radiant energy of the sun, plants are able to decompose carbonic acid. They form storage cells in which a current of electricity decomposes the liquid into oxygen and hydrogen and forms materials, which again give electricity, motion, and heat. The sun enables the plant engine to work. It also enables the man engine and animal engine and world engine to work by furnishing them all with the electric energy and working power of the universe, that they do their part in the ever-living forces of cosmic life. The cells of protoplasm are infinitesimal magnets or electrical engines. All vegetables are but larger magnets. All animals still larger, till we get to the worlds and suns, the greatest of them all. All the radiant garments of creation in their varied colors of light and beauty that now appear to human vision are woven from the same garments of immortality that wrap themselves around the initial centers of magnetic attraction. As the worlds were created by invisible electric forces under the guidance of the omnipotent creative spirit, so the same electric forces are still carrying forward the work of their unfinished structure and perfecting the unity and completing the harmony of creation. What we now call gravity is electric interaction and accretion that was commenced at the beginning of nature's work of creation, and which continues to be the occult force that serves the growth of a blade of grass, unfolding of the tiniest seed with its enwrapped life germ, and the development of the world, and which brings us face to face with the creative force that was the starting point of the beginning, and will be the culminating center of all ultimate perfected creation. This electric life energy touches each growing seed center as at the beginning it touched each growing world center and reveals the power and wisdom of creation in every evolving form of life. The same electric radiant lines that give the perennial image in the mirror by an instantaneous flash of light give also the parental image in the germ life that evolves in new paternity. While we cannot trace the lines of electrical union that are mingled in this new life, we are justified in affirming that electric and radiant matter must have bridged the chasm between the old lives and the new, between parental duality and the dual forces of electricity that produced a new germinal individuality, and the new life cannot be possible without the separate unfolding of two distinct organisms meeting in generative embrace, imparting a new seed life. All germ life has its beginning where positive and negative magnetic currents blend into unity. The germinal life of the food supply of plant and animal fix the boundaries of its being. There can be no evolution of plant life into animal life. It is not scientific or rational. Vegetable, plant, and tree have no independent existence separate from the soil of the earth, except as latent in seed form. As all material organisms take on their organic form around electric or magnetic centers, drawing their atoms from electrical currents, so all life germs take their growth from the magnetic centers of their growing forms. Here, in the field of electric forces, is to be found the generative forces of organic matter, the mysterious births from all parental life, and the constantly revolving circle of periodic changes of growth and decay, of life and death, of seed beginning and seed producing, like sunshine and shadow, Light and darkness are opposite points in the circle of electric force and physical life. The growing and dying life forms intervene between these 2 points of rest and renewal, of attraction and repulsion, of positive organism and negative diffusion of matter. They are the results of the great electric system of attracting and repelling currents of magnetism that are as fixed in their lines of force and order of work as rocks at the foundations of mountains. In fact, all that is strong and abiding in matter rests upon these currents of energy, and all of life is dependent upon the constancy and perpetually pulsating flow of the unseen electrical potencies of creation. Life is a universal unity, as light, heat, electricity, and polarization, which evolve it, are unity. The order of ascending life organism is from the simple to the complex. From the lowest plane of rock formation, the series is upward. From the lowest form of vegetable life, it is up to the highest. And in the animal life, upward till the crowning work is reached in the thinking animal we call man, who is more than a thinking animal. To each ascending form there is an endowment of self-perpetuation by parentage and seed fruitage, which involve the electromagnetic condition of germ life. Thus, by electrical forces, plants build within each other and form others by elementary atoms with power of self-propagation, bridging the life gulf between silent atom and living organism, as if they were the material work of some spiritual builder. Thus, by electric forces, nature builds all human and animal life forms and organisms. The primary atoms of matter have their home in the electromagnetic forces and are evolved from them into the material organisms of creation. When the electromagnetic origin of light, heat, physical life, and so-called gravitation is fully accepted and their dynamic energy traced to its potential body, we have reached the strength of primary forces and unending circle of electrical potencies. This brings us to the borderland of creative work, to the mysterious sea of all life-giving forces, and the universal bias of all existing creation. Here, spirit, matter, and electricity, the 3 giant basic entities of creation, work together in full accord in evolving and fashioning all material growth and material structures. In natural growth, protoplasm gives the material conditions of life, without which there could be no food supplies. They contain grouped elements of oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, and carbon, out of which living structures are reared. Life is dependent upon food supplies of matter, which supplies must be raised to radiant conditions by electric forces to secure its assimilation into living organic forms. Life, therefore, like light, seeks through magnetic action a radiant plane of matter where it can reveal its working presence. Upon such a plane, all forms of life come to birth from a common parentage from electric force and radiant matter, each form endowed with personality and powers of reproduction that make them factors of life and growth upon the radiant plane of creative potencies. Professor G.F. Wright of Oberlin says in a recent article, "Evolution does not solve the mysteries of the universe. It simply pushes them one step further back. The mystery of the acorn is greater than the mystery of the oak, for it has compressed in it all the power and potency of the oak. It is no explanation of a chick to say it is hatched from an egg. The wonder and the mystery is simply carried back to that infinitesimal point in the egg which conceals within itself power of producing the feathered biped with all its marvelous instincts and adapted organism. I hold that the infinitesimal point in the egg and the acorn is its electric center of life force, or magnetic core, which, under the law of organic affinity, develops by nutrition and respiration, which are electric processes, into the chick and the oak. He says, so of all the processes of nature, man's vision sees only the surface. We do not see causes, but only effects. We plant a seed, and all that we see is that, under certain conditions, it springs up and produces the blade, then the ear, and last the full corn in the ear. No one knows how it comes about that two seeds which look alike under the same conditions produce different colored flowers and different quantities of fruit. The beginning of everything is a mystery. If one affirms that things have no beginning, he but increases the mystery. The difficulty with all theories of evolution is to get a starting point. The time was when philosophers could speak of the universe as eternal, and the geologists 50 years ago could do so. But the demonstration of the conservation of energy has put an end to any such easygoing speculation. All this is well stated and very true, except that by treating all things as electromagnets, drawing positive and negative atoms or ions from air, food, and water, we see how by nutrition and accretion, animal and vegetable organism may be evolved by the law of magnetic attraction and organic affinity. This is the only rational solution and is in accord with all the processes of nature and with the conservation of energy. Elsewhere, I have endeavored to explain how, by the constant renewal of matter and electric energy in the sun and in space, the universe may be eternal and no waste or deterioration occur, and while always changing, it is virtually changeless. Reminds me of that saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Newton, in his theory of gravitation, discovered one phase of electric energy, and his law of gravitation is in reality simply the law of electrical attraction. But he never knew the cause of it, and never discovered the other and dual phase of electric energy, the law of electrical repulsion. He never even suspected it, for he held that the balancing force of gravitation of the other planets keep each planet from falling into the sun, which it otherwise would have done under the law of gravitation, which says large bodies attract smaller ones. This position was untenable, as I have shown in the cities of the sun. Newton thought that an apple was attracted to the earth because the earth was larger, and that any larger body would attract a smaller one. But I hold that size is not what controls attraction. It is electrical conditions. An amount of substance from the sun would have more attracting power than the same amount from the earth, because the sun has more electrical power. A lodestone has more attracting power than the same amount of ordinary substance. A pound of iron has no attracting force until it is magnetized. Then it will lift many times its weight. So size, weight, or gravity is no test of attracting power. I therefore repudiate the law of gravity and adopt electricity with its dual force of action and reaction, attraction and repulsion, as the supreme cosmic evolving force of the universe, creating all light, heat, and life, and producing all the varied and wonderful phenomena of nature. I hold that by the law of electric energy, the sun is not a thermal or heating engine, as the astronomers proclaim, but is an electric generator and is not hot, and that the sun's rays neither where they originate or where they act are hot, but they come to earth as cool currents of electricity, which generate heat near the earth's surface by coming in contact with an opposite electricity and the resistance and friction of its atmosphere. Proof of this is found in the snow-covered peaks of the tropics and the glaciers of the torrid zone. I have waited 6 years for objections to the electric theory of creation and have found only one recently stated. This first and only objection is that electricity is a derivative force. Professor G.F. Wright of Oberlin, again, in an article in the Chicago Record, December 1902, says, "Many of the speculations concerning the unlimited use of electricity overlook the fact that it's a derivative origin. Electricity is but transformed force. It is not a producer of force, but a consumer of force. It merely directs the force to its specific end." Duh. No kidding. That's what it does. It merely directs the force to its specific end. The electricity which propels and warms the street cars of Buffalo and furnishes power to its small factory and illuminates its streets is merely force diverted from the Falls of Niagara. In other words, it is transformed gravity. True, but gravitation is simply electric attraction, and the electricity that propels lights and warms the cars is electric attraction diverted from the falls and used on the cars. It is not derivative force, but the original and only force, electric force, transferred from the falls to the cars. But Professor Wright himself destroys his own argument when he says, "In other cases the electricity is derived from the heat of consuming coal, while the coal is the product of the sun's rays, chemically sealed up in the coal deposits of the early geological age. Indeed, it is easy to see that all the available force in the world is the product of the sun's rays. In this we fully agree, for I say the heat of the coal and the heat of the sun is electricity. The sun's rays, which he says is all the available force in the world, is electricity, and the sun is the great electric heart of the solar system. Thus, we differ only in terms. While he whips electricity around the stump and says it is a new thing every time he turns a corner, I say it is the same electricity without any change and proves the oneness of the universe as a vast electric organism. Thus, our great scientists befogged themselves. Now that Langley says there is only one radiant matter, and light, heat, and chemical changes are all one entity, perhaps he may change his view. I have tried to convince the cross-eyed reasoners, pinheads, that all force is one force, all matter is one matter. All scientists are now coming to that conclusion steadily. Yes, but they'd have to be honest themselves, and I don't see too many that have that ability. They'd rather stumble around in an obtuse land. Professor Wright says again, the strength and warmth of all animal bodies is traceable to carbon, and whenever we move a limb or walk, the power to do it is obtained by the consumption of carbon. Well, I say carbon is one form of stored electricity. He says the ox feeds upon the grass which is collected or grows through the influence of sunlight. I say the sunlight is electric currents from a great electric dynamo, the sun. He says the nebular theory is faulty, and I agree with him. He says gravitation is an utter mystery that has baffled all scientific explanation, and I agree with him, and go a step further and affirm that there is no such thing as gravitation, and never was. Newton discovered one of the dual forces of electricity, which I call universal electric attraction, and called it gravitation. He says, so far as we can see, gravitation acts instantaneously, and Newton gave up the problem of defining it, and he said that he had no explanation except to say, God so made it. I form no hypothesis. This is true, but Newton knew nothing of electricity, or his great intellect would likely have discovered the truth and named and explained it as electric attraction. Absolutely. I agree. It just would have been that guy instead of the apple. Newton discovered an imaginary force, an idea, a dream, an occult force, as Leibniz called it. Newton had an imagination which the scientific plotters who have come after him lack. Seem to remember reading that. They have dug in the dirt while he sailed through azure seas and linked suns and worlds together by a mere sweep of the imagination, this worth repeating, without any explanation or conceivable cause, and called it gravity. He might just as well have called it ponderosity. Philip Atkinson, in his work of Electricity, 1902, asserts that energy manifests itself either in masses of matter or in small particles called molecules. And thus we have two kinds, mass energy and molecular energy. I remember in his presentation, Princeton, Manuel Villacrosse, Back of Earth and Upheaval, said that the greatest time for scientific discovery in the history of man, the greatest decade, was the years 1895 to 1905. It boggles the mind of all the things discovered. This seems to fit right in. Mass energy and molecular energy. But have we two kinds of energy? Mass energy and molecular energy is the same. Mass energy is but the aggregation of molecular energy. Large bodies attract small ones because they possess more electric energy. Gravity, or weight, is but another name for aggregate molecular electric attraction of the Earth for everything upon its surface. The gravity or weight of a man is the pull or force with which the electric attraction of the Earth holds him to its surface. The gravity or weight of a man is the pull or force with which the electric attraction of the Earth holds him to its surface. In other words, the Earth is a vast magnet, and a man's body is a smaller magnet. And as the magnetic core of a steel magnet draws all metals towards its magnetic center, so does the Earth magnet draw all things toward its center. The same author states that the Earth is a great thermopile generating electric currents by the difference of potential between its heated and cooled parts. And this, I agree with him. But he only states one of 1,000 ways to generate electric currents. He says further, heat is believed to be a certain mode of molecular motion, and electricity to be another mode. But the nature of the motion of each has never been discovered, and I think never will, as long as the false notion prevails that heat and electricity are modes of motion. A mode of motion is nonsense, for motion is an effect produced by a cause. It is not a cause, and all cause of motion is electricity, and the mode of operation is the law of electromagnetism. That's a pretty great law right there. All cause of motion is electricity. That says it all. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. Get a tattoo. All cause of motion is electricity. There is no difference in the law or mode of operation of electric currents in a volcano, in a cloud, in the earth, in the sun or planets, in an electric light, or in a man's body. The same law exists, and the same natural results follow when one lights the gas with a flash of electricity from his finger, as when a meteor blazes, a comet flares out in space, or a sun becomes luminous. The same force that man causes to run along a telegraph wire, or through a telephone circuit, or which runs a streetcar line, or is taken by the brushes from a revolving dynamo, is the same force and operated under the same law or mode of force as electric life-giving currents that come from the sun constantly in an omnipotent tide of power. Professor Thomson says the Earth is generally found to be negatively electrified and is insulated in its atmosphere, being in fact a conductor touched only by air, a strong insulator. He says further,
The quality of non-resistance to electric force of the interplanetary ether being considered, the Earth, the atmosphere, and the surrounding medium may be regarded, respectively, the inner coating, the dielectric, and outer coating of a large Leyden jar charged negative. Professor S.P. Thomson in Electricity and Magnetism says, Gilbert made the discovery that the compass points north and south because the Earth is also a great magnet. Faraday said, all matter is in a magnetic condition. Sir Oliver Lodge says, the idea that magnetism is a whirl of electricity is as old as the ampere. Perceiving that a magnet could be initiated by an electric whirl. He's the guy who came up with the original hypothesis that an electric whirl existed in every magnet. How right he was. Maxwell announced the proposition that electromagnetic phenomena and light phenomena have their origin in the same medium and are identical in nature. Hertz, by actually producing, detecting, and controlling electric waves, caused the discovery of wireless electricity, and it is by the wonderful wireless telegraphy of light that man is put on communication with every considerable body in the universe, including even the invisible. By it, the goings-on in Sirius and Algol, Orion, and the Pleiades are reported across enormous stretches of millions of miles of space, and by the vibratory motion of the invisibility small, all things are revealed. The infinity little has enabled us to conquer the inconceivably big. I hold, seeing and hearing are the simplest examples of wireless telegraphy. Elihu Thomson, the great electrician, says, Hertz proved that all luminous phenomena are in essence electrical. Wireless electricity is the outcome of Hertz experiments on electric waves. Electrical conditions and actions are more fundamental than hitherto regarded. William Ramey, a distinguished chemist, says it is primary assumption that atoms of elements, or in certain cases groups of atoms, are themselves electrified, and atoms possess positive and negative poles, and combinations ensue between such oppositely electrified bodies. Mr. Francis Gearson, a prominent scientist of London, in a recent London periodical says, so far as we know, electricity is the soul of visible form. What we call brain waves have an analogy to electric waves. The discoveries and inventions of the last 10 years have made child's play of every previously known system of philosophy. That was when Velikovsky was talking about it too. The simple but amazing facts disclosed during the past 5 years render the dreams, speculations, and guesswork of the past absurd. The little we know, in a practical way, is more than all the philosophers of the past. And I feel like I've read that before, too. Professor Langley, in his address at the 1902 session of the American Association of Scientists, stated that up to 1872 it was almost universally believed that there were 3 different kinds of energy: actinic, luminous, and thermal, represented in the spectrum. But he affirmed there is only one radiant energy which appears to use as actinic. There is only one radiant energy which appears to use as actinic, luminous, or thermal, according to the way we observe it. Heat and light are not things in themselves, but different sensations in our bodies, or different effects in other bodies. They are merely effects of this mysterious thing we call radiant energy. He thus sustains my position and the electric theory of creation, which is that there is but one universal and ultimate energy, which he calls radiant and I call electric energy, and which are the same thing. It is said that an Italian physicist wrote in 1843, light is merely a series of colorific indications sensible to the organs of light, or vice versa. The radiations of obscure heat are vertical and visible radiations of light. Heat are vertical and visible radiations of light. Thus Langley, by his elaborate researches, more refined and complex than all preceding ones, proved to be true. Since so orthodox a scientist as Langley has proven there is but one energy, and other scientists may stumble over it a while and then accept it. He is a high authority. It didn't work. Sir Oliver Lodge, in The Electrical World, of February 21st, 1903, sustains the electrical theory strongly. He says, all matter is electrical in its nature. The difference between one kind of matter and another lies in the physical and chemical properties of the atoms. But the difference between the atoms is merely due to the difference of the electric grouping of the atom. He holds that Thomson corpuscles are all electric. Thomson's theory is that negative electricity is matter. Lodge holds that all matter, down to the ultimate corpuscle, is electricity, or electrical substance. Thus, I am sustained by the highest, most recent authority. Professor E.L. Larkin of the California University said recently, the Earth has a permanent charge of negative electricity, and the atmosphere is positive. The surface potential is therefore very near zero. This permits electromagnetic waves from the sun to act with unabated energy. Professor Lucien I. Blake of Kansas University said in a recent lecture, all atoms of matter are charged with electricity. All vital actions are always connected with electricity. I could fill a volume with recent statements of scientists showing that electricity produces all the phenomena of nature, all of which they have learned in the past few years, while as a pioneer in this field of thought, I have been trying to propagate these electrical theories for many years. Every year, new facts are discovered showing that electricity is the cosmic, evolving, ultimate, and only force in nature, and the universe is a vast electric machine, or organism, moved by electric currents of measureless force and power. The earth revolves around the sun. The sun gravitates around some sidereal center in motion like itself, and myriads of suns and planets with their countless population move with many times the velocity of a cannonball. Stars that seem tranquil and motionless in the heavens are projected through space with a velocity of 100 to 200 miles per second. Atoms of our bodies move relatively with as much velocity as the stars in the heavens. Motion, electric energy, reigns everywhere, forms everything, controls, handles, and evolves all suns and planets, all physical life, substance, and organism, human experience, and universal nature. The electric rays of light from suns and stars of the most distant constellations dart their beams across the universe, and centuries after, the impulse of electric energy enters the human eye and gives sense and vision to the soul. Thus, the dynamic chains of electric light binds into living unity the realms of matter and mind, though measureless amplitudes of space and time. These electric currents are not only the source of all natural phenomena, but the sea of electromagnetism from which they come is the reservoir of life, which stands back of all the myriad manifestations of physical existence, and is the great fountain of vitality from which all life must come. What is electricity? Tesla says it is invisible light. Adkins says it is molecular motion. Fleming says it is a spiral twist of the ether. But the best definition is given in the Scriptures, where it says all things were made by the word of his power. It is the word of creative power. End of chapter. I hope you enjoy it.